Okay, so we're gonna talk about flexibility, and so this is something that you should never do when you're cold. You should always do it at the end of exercise when you've warmed up and kind of just stretching the tissues and keeping everything supple. So mobility is at the beginning, flexibility is at the end. So the first stretch we're going to do is the iliopsoas stretch. So the iliopsoas actually is in the front of the hip, but it actually comes from the back. So it comes from like up here around the hip and then into the front. So a lot of times back pain actually is caused from the iliopsoas. So you're going to be in a lunge position and you're going to tuck your tailbone. You're going to lunge forward, and then if you want to get more of a stretch, you're going to take the same arm and you're going to reach it up to the ceiling and then extend it back. You're going to hold for 15 seconds, and you can do this a couple of times if you want. And then you're going to switch, hold your arm up, 15 seconds. So then the next one we're going to do is called the rectus femoris, and that is a two joint muscle. So that has an effect on the hip as well as the knee. So we'll be addressing it as the knee as well. But because it's a two joint muscle, it's associated with the hip. And so in order to stretch that, you're going to get a wall or a chair. You're going to stick your foot on the wall and one foot in front. Now you may need something to hang on to, but depending on how tight you are is how close the knee is going to get to the wall. So if you're really flexible, the knee will be at the wall. And if you're not, you can see like my knee's quite away from the wall. And so like my quads, my rec fem is quite tight. I'm going to tuck that tailbone again. And then what I'm going to do is if I feel a stretch here, I'm just going to hold here 15 seconds. But if I want more of a stretch, I'm going to basically lunge forward a little bit. And you could feel that anywhere from here all the way down into the knee. And you're going to hold for 15 seconds. And then you're going to switch sides. Then the next one we're going to do is the hamstring. So the hamstring is this muscle in the back here. And if you've been sitting a lot, it's going to be quite tight. And during COVID, as we know, people sit more. And it attaches onto just underneath the butt here. And it is a big culprit in low back pain as well. So this is a good one to stretch for low back pain. As well as if it's tight, then potentially the glutes aren't going to fire. So it's important to stretch this muscle. So I like to do it on the floor, because if you were to do it like this, you see how my back arches and I'm like, oh look, I can touch my toes. Well, when you go on the floor, it actually takes away the rounding of your back. So you're going to be near a door frame. And then again, this one, depending on how flexible your hamstrings are, so your knee should be straight and your foot should be pointed down to the ground. Then what you're going to do is you're going to push your leg into the wall, making sure that your hips are level, and you're going to push into the wall, and you can feel that anywhere you want. So basically you could feel in the low back, the calf, the hamstring, and you're just going to hold for 15 seconds. And then after you've done this for 15 seconds, you're going to try and move a little bit closer. So you're going to push into the wall. And then after 15 seconds, you're going to push again into the wall. So you can do that 3 times, 15 seconds, trying to move your bum closer to the wall. And then you're going to switch sides. So then the next muscle we're going to stretch is the piriformis. And the sciatic nerve runs right under the piriformis. So the piriformis is a muscle that runs this way. And if it's tight, it's going to pull the pelvis out. And you're going to get low back pain. And the sciatic nerve runs through there. So a lot of people think they have sciatica, but actually it's just the piriformis muscle is really tight, and that's compressing on the actual nerve. So in order to get that one, what you're going to do is you're going to put your leg up at 90 degrees on the wall. Then you're going to take your other foot and you're going to place the ankle on the knee. Now, if your hips are tight, you're going to be way up here. If your hips aren't tight, this is going to be at 90 degrees. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to push our hand, we're going to push our knee down to the wall, and then the knee is going to push back. So we're going to feel some tension in the hip. We're going to hold for 15 seconds. And after 15 seconds, we're gonna relax and let it go again. We're gonna push for 15 seconds. We're gonna relax and let it go. We're gonna do it 3 times. And then we're gonna switch. And we're gonna do the same thing, doing 3 times 15. So each time you do it, you should be able to take the knee closer to the wall. So then we're also going to take a lacrosse ball and we're going to trigger point 2 muscles. So one of the muscles is called the tensofasciae latae. It sits right here. So if you find your hip and you rotate your knee in and out, you'll feel something pop into your hip in and out. That's your TFL. And if that's tight, then your glutes aren't going to fire properly. So we're going to take the ball and we're going to go right into this area. So you're going to lay on it. You're going to lay on the ball. And what you're going to do is you're going to roll up and down and side to side. Now, if it's tight, it's going to be quite painful. So if you have strong glutes and the TFL isn't doing any of the work, you're not really going to feel anything. But if you have a tight TFL, it can be quite tight and painful. And then the other muscle that's involved with the hip is called the Quadratus Lumborum, and it is right here. It's actually an abdominal muscle, but it's on the back. So if you find your hip bone and then you find your spine, it makes like a triangle or like a rectangle right in this area here. So we're going to stick the ball here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to lay on it, and we can lift our butt up and really press into it if we want to get more of an intensity. And it's like melting butter. So when you're trigger pointing a muscle, it's going to be intense, and then there's going to be a release, and that's what we're looking for. And then once you feel the release, then you're just going to find another spot in that triangle, and you're just going to sink into it and let it release. And then again. So you're going to work in that area. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is the foam roller. So the foam roller, there's a lot of people who don't believe stretching and foam rolling is very effective. I'm a firm believer in it. Our tissues, the fascia, they all require flexibility and durability. So I believe in it. So with the foam roller, when we roll the IT band, on top of the skin, there's some receptors. So we're actually calming the receptors down. So the message to the brain to relax the tissue. So a lot of people foam roll. So you're going to find your hip bone. You're just going to go just below your hip bone, so you never roll onto a joint. Then you're going to have your top leg over your bottom leg, and then you can just roll. When you find a spot, just sink into it. Another way you can do the IT band is just back and forth. So just moving the roller back and forth. You can bend your knee, which is going to create a lot more intensity in the IT band, and then roll back and forth. Or you can roll up and down, find a spot, sit on it, roll back and forth. Another one that gets really tight is your abductors. They're major stabilizers here. So they get quite tight and they can cause hip or knee pain. So you're going to take the foam roller and you're going to take it in this direction, and then you're going to get right at the edge of the foam roller and you're going to put it right into the hip area. Now the leg opposite the adductor we're going to roll is going to move. So you're going to go all the way towards the knee. So like right about here, you might feel some pain and tension. And this can be a big culprit of knee pain. And you're just going to roll back and forth. If you find a spot, you're just going to sink into it. Again, 15 seconds is what you're going to hold. And then just move back and forth. Then you can roll up and down. And then the last one we're going to do is the quadriceps. So that's this guy right here. And it can be quite tight. So we're going to do one quad at a time. So we're going to start just below the hip bone. And then you're going to roll all the way towards the knee. So now my quads are quite tight, so right there I feel a lot of like tension. So I'm gonna kind of sit here and roll back and forth, just like that, tension release. And again, this can cause, tight quads can cause knee pain. And then you're just gonna roll up. Back. So again, 15 seconds. So that's the flexibility.